Ooh. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Monday Night Call. This is Shelly, and tonight we are doing a virtual tastings refresh. Some of you I know were at the training that Jaclyn and Katie actually did at convention, and they did a little refresh there. It's kind of interesting as we, I guess, get farther and farther with virtual tastings. Jaclyn had initially done a training with this, a year ago, after, it was a long time ago. So I'm like, we need a refresh because things kind of change. And as you do them more, you become a little bit more comfortable and confident too. So I am happy to introduce our guest speaker tonight is Jaclyn Bonham. She is a director out of Virginia. And she has a lot to share with you. And I have bullet points. So I am just going to turn it over to her, and Jaclyn, we will get going. So welcome and thanks for sharing.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be able to do this for everybody. Virtual tastings has been a great way to just add to your business. It's worked for me. I was fortunate enough when we opened in South Dakota to let my customers know that we were open there, and the actual person who introduced me to Wine Shop at Home, of course, was like, I know someone in South Dakota. Of course you did. And so since I couldn't drive or fly 1,200 miles to do a tasting, it just wasn't feasible. I said, well, it has to be virtual. So we gave it a go. And I've been really fortunate that people are brave enough and bold enough to do it. Not only does the consultant have to do what the host does. I don't think that I am 100% perfect on virtual tastings. I do know what works for me and what has been successful for me. So I will share some of the highlights that a lot of people have asked me about. So if you've never, ever heard of a virtual tasting before, what is it? Well, instead of being in the actual physical room or home of your host with the guests, you're going to do it over the computer. So thanks to technology, there's a lot of different ways that we can connect across the miles, which I absolutely love. And this just provides us with way more options to do additional tastings. So I think it's a great way to go from 4 to 6 a month, or 6 to 8 a month, or even more than that. So it is a great way to expand across the country if you're unable to travel. Like I said, I just was not available. Hopefully one day I'll have a big enough team all over that I can just say, sure, I'll hop over there and do that for you. But I think it's a great way to get our name and our company and our brand out there to more people instead of just saying, no, can't do it. I think it's an amazing opportunity to not only just grow in our backyard. We have this capability through technology to visit other states literally from the comfort of our own home. So here I am sitting in my dining room. This is where I do most of my virtual tastings if my 4 children and 2 dogs aren't around. I've literally done them in my bedroom in the sitting room when I've had family in town. I did a tasting this past January on my birthday because it was a reschedule that we absolutely had to do. So I went to brunch with my family and came home and then still guided a tasting in New York. So you just never know. It's a really nice way that you can beef up your calendar. And after this training, if you've never done a virtual tasting, I highly recommend that you do at least one, rip that Band-Aid off and try it and find a good host. And if you have done them, but they haven't been successful in the past, try again, right? Like, what can it hurt? You can always get sales, wine club members, and of course, team members out of it. All right, next slide. These fancy graphics Shelly did. So Wine 11, I call it a Wine 11, like emergency virtual tasting. So what this means is in case like bad weather, like these winters can be crazy, right? Not only in Virginia, but especially in the Northeast, all over Midwest. If you cannot physically get there, and you, instead of canceling the tasting, like if you as the consultant can't get there, guess what? You can still hold that tasting. And the great thing is that you can still guide it over the computer for someone. So last minute, as long as your host has the wine and all the information and their guests are still coming, let's connect over the computer or phone or iPad, and there you go. There's a few other reasons that you could have an emergency tasting. There could be, besides the weather, an illness, childcare issues, deployment, lots of military issues going on, your spouse comes to travel all of a sudden. But the most important thing for these last minute ones is that the IWC is unavailable to physically be present at the tasting, and the host can agree to still get the benefits, right? They have the wine anyway. So one thing that's super important to keep in mind is the ship to states. Got another, I think, there we go. Thanks, Shelly. So you need to know which states the sampler ships to the host, in which states the sampler ships to the consultant. In Virginia, the samplers ship to me as the consultant. So if I were to do a last minute tasting because I can't physically get there, that's not going to really work, right, if they don't have the wine. So on your left-hand side of your back office, in common forms, which is a great place to go, there is the state tax rate and volume limitations chart found there, and it will let you know who's a ship to host, state or not. There's about, I think, 13 of us where the samplers come to our state. So just keep that in mind, especially in the winter months when the weather starts to get a little crazy and dangerous out there, in case you need to make it a last minute virtual tasting. So that's pretty important, because instead of rescheduling, and you never know, you might not get the greatest group to come for that reschedule, or you might not get the wine club members or whatever, you can still go ahead with all the guests that have RSVP'd to attend, and then the host is still happy, because I think at that point the host would be like, sure, let's do it, why not? I still don't have to do anything different. So, okay, next slide. I never had anybody say next slide. It's kind of fun. So how host coaching is different from regular tasting. So first of all, if you are not very strong, I would say, in your host coaching abilities, you, number one, beef it up. You really need to. There's an excellent host coaching checklist in our back office that's available. So for host coaching across the miles is what I call it. You really need to beef it up a little bit more, especially if your host is in that stranger danger zone. Like if you do not know who this person, you're not friends with them, family members, never met them before, and they're just like, I'm going to host a tasting and I live, 3,000 miles away. You really, they don't know what they don't know. You have to walk them through every single thing. So keep that in mind. Host coaching can literally make or break any tasting, whether it's in person or virtual. So that's super important to know. You need to definitely make note of which wines are in the sampler, and you can check that in your back office in the orders and the shipping. But I think it's a great idea to have a copy of the recipe cards or the Vint Notes cards with you during that virtual tasting, so you don't look like a fool if they're like, hey, what cheese pairs with this? Because you do want to fill in the blanks for everyone when the host is pouring the wine, and someone could be reading that card, whether it's the host or a guest, with information. You don't want them to just start passing it, and you want to make sure they know the information about the wine that's being presented. Another thing, use the app. I have found, if you have never used the app before, first of all, just try it on one order in your next tasting, just one order. I literally was sweating bullets when I had to do it. So you can definitely use the app during the virtual tasting, and I highly recommend using a computer or iPad so that you can use your phone for the app and put the orders in, which has been really helpful to me. Two things that just came up. When you book a tasting in the app, it does automatically ship to the host. So if you're one of the states like Virginia where it ships to us, you can go change that in the back office, or you just have to let your host know that it's coming. So keep that in mind if you're booking any tastings on the app, and you can change it. So that's important to know, especially if you're new and don't know all the rules and everything. Okay, remind them what they will need at the tasting, since you're not going to physically be there to bring it, right? So you need to make sure that the host will have like wine glasses, plates, napkins, pens. Pens are very important so they can take notes, fill out interest forms and stuff like that. So make sure that they know everything that they're going to need to have at the tasting, since again, you're not showing up with your little bag. Also go over to chill the wines, because some hosts might not know that. And also let them know that you will open them and connect right before the tasting begins, because you don't want them opening them like a day before or 2 hours before and they start tasting them or sipping on them. Also a dump bucket, pitcher of water, all those things are kind of important just for them to have. So this way they don't feel stressed at the event when everybody comes. These are a few ideas of what I send to my hosts to use during the tasting. A posi pour is a great idea. You can purchase them. If you don't have them, it's going to be fine. You just have to try and get them to pour 1 measured ounce. Drop stops are great. You can buy them in bulk. Wine glass writer pens. I also do corks, like Wine Shop at Home corks in a little organza bag if you like, and cocktail napkins. You can get them super cheap at the dollar store or anything like that. All of these items are not made to break your bank, and I don't want you to do that on shipping either. This should be like less than $10 definitely to send this little package to your host. Plus, it just shows the host that you care and that you're more professional and business-like, that you're going to really take care of them at their events. All right, what else we got? Test your virtual connection 1 to 2 days before your tasting. I cannot stress this enough. Okay, what if they connect on their laptop and for some reason it's a super old laptop and they can't hear you? I've had hosts that have had to hook up speakers. I've had hosts that use their TV. So when they take a picture and send it to me, my face is like 6 feet. I'm like, oh my God. So just make sure that they test the connection, and whatever room they're going to be in, make sure they also bring their device, whether it's phone, laptop, iPad, into that same room so that it works. Because what if they're like, oh, I wanted to have it in my kitchen area, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is not gonna work. I don't have any place to put my device. A dining room might be better, or a living room. These are the programs that I have used. I've used all of them. Google Hangout I put up the top. That is my favorite. You can download the app, or it's just in your Gmail. If you have a Gmail or your host does, you literally just click on the little tiny camera when you add their little contact in there, and boom, you're connected. It is that easy. And I find that there is like 0 interruption. I used to use Skype a lot in the beginning, and there were so many connectivity issues. It was very frustrating. Zoom, not everybody has a Zoom account. So most people will probably have a Gmail account over a Zoom account, and they have to sign up for it. And FaceTime is great too, but if you're using your phone, you can't text anybody during it, which I'll get to in just a little bit, but you can always FaceTime over your computer or your iPad, I guess, as well. But those are just my preference. If you find another program that works for you, please share it and rock it out. All right. So like I mentioned, when you're host coaching and connecting a few days before, you want to make sure what room the tasting is going to be in, and you want to go over with the host that you want to connect about 15 to 20 minutes maybe before the tasting starts. So if your tasting's like 11 o'clock brunch, you want to connect by 10:40, 10:45, because you want to be in that room when guests start arriving. I love it when I walk into a tasting 15, 20 minutes before and like 1 or 2 people are already there. I'm like, oh, hi, because those people are interested in the business. And if you don't know that, now you do. So that's really fun. So for interacting with the guests and the hosts during the tasting, I find that you can text, you can go to the next one. There you go, thank you. Text the flyers to the host, and then she can put you in a group text. There's a few options. I recently did this, and it's worked out a lot better for me personally than in my past tastings. So if Shelly's my host and I'm talking about Wine Club, I can just send her a quick text on the current wines, and then she can text it to all of her friends in the room because she's their friend, right? She has all their contacts in her phone. She can also add me as a group text, so she can put me in there with them or just send it to them. The other thing that I'd like to do is if you have a Facebook event, which 9 out of 10 of mine, probably more than that now, are, you can just on your phone, boop, go into that Facebook event and bump up the, hosting flyer or whatever it is that you're talking about. Make sure that you cover every single thing during your virtual tasting that you would in person, all of the products that we have to offer, because you just never know what someone might be interested in. So Wine Club that I mentioned, America's Mighty Warriors, is super important. The wine bundles, when we had the wine specials, that was really hot. We have some great like seasonal gifts and holiday times coming up, so stay tuned for great specials like that. And of course, your join flyer. Don't ever, ever, never, ever leave that out. Let's see. So everyone, I found this out because everyone peeks at their phones anyway during a tasting, whether it's virtual or in person, right? I mean, if they're going to download your app, if they're going to upload themselves onto your app or something like that. So by you texting the host or them all the info, they've got it on there. Like there's no reason they can't be like, I didn't see this flyer. So if you don't email your host ahead of time all those flyers, boom, they've got them themselves right on their electronic device. Okay. Presentation. So virtual tastings, you do have a lot more host assistance and interaction with the guests for the host doing that part than you. You're pretty much there to facilitate everything. You are still guiding the tasting and pointing them and what to do and what's next, but I'm over here, I'm sipping my little sparkling wine while they're onto their third wine and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that your host is going to be on board with you and all the guests when they get there. And you also want to really, really make sure that you can try to see every single person there, because if you're at the head of the table and the computer's over here, you're on the computer screen or iPad or whatever it is, and people go around the table right here, you can't see these people, right? Or maybe you see like half of Shelly's face or something like that. So try and see everybody that you possibly can, just so you can make sure that they're engaged and interacting. And one thing that I've noticed with no matter what program you use, there always is, like even on Zoom tonight, there's an overlap of sound. So if you're the IWC and you're guiding the tasting and there's background chatter, they might not hear you. So that's one thing to cover when you first connect with the host, and remind them, say, hey, I'm going to share a little bit of information with you. And then when I'm finished, you guys can chat a little bit. And what's the next line? Let's go on to the next one. And then I have a little more information. And honestly, no one's ever really super rude that I've come in contact with. They do all want to hear the information. So that's why it's great if they can see you too and you can see them. Another thing that I found with virtual tastings is that they seem to go quicker than in-person tastings. I think because there's that curiosity for the guest and the host from the other end across the miles. They're like, ooh, what is she gonna say now? Or what's next? Or what cue is she gonna give us to, pour which wine next? So they kind of move and flow a lot quicker. So you don't have all those little side conversations when you're going into the next wine or the next product or the next flyer or whatever you're gonna pass around. So to me, that's a big perk. And then therefore I think they're easier, right? Because we don't have any travel time. We don't have to worry about getting anywhere. I've been asked if I'm wearing pants before when I'm sitting on the tastings, and I have to stand up and show I'm wearing pants because I'm in my house. It's kind of funny. And again, you can pour yourself a little bit more than like a ½ ounce to drink if you choose, because you're at your home. So there's a lot of perks, which is great, right? So let's see. Oh, okay. This is one of my favorite things. Booking virtual tastings from a virtual tasting. It is definitely easier to book another tasting when you're at a virtual tasting because everyone's there. They're experiencing it right away. They're living in it. They get to see it, meet you, develop this relationship with you, and they trust you. So they're like, oh, wait, let's see. Today's Sunday at 11 o'clock, a brunch tasting. I think in 2-3 weeks from now, I'm available that Sunday. I'd love to host a tasting like this for all of my wine-loving friends. So that's really great. You can get some decent bookings from them, especially if there isn't a wine rep in that area or that state. That's why we're doing these virtual tastings, is to expose ourselves and our company to a new group of people. So the new host is normally present at the tasting, one of the guests, so they get to see how simple and fun everything is for their events, and they want the same thing, which is really great. So typically, I would say you normally get minimum 2 bookings from every virtual tasting, which is really great. So that's what you want. That grows your business. 1 replaces it, 2 grows, 2 or more grows. So keep that in mind, because also, don't forget, if people can attend that virtual tasting, if they want to, make sure the host puts you in touch with them, because if they really wanted to go but they can't, they'll also host for you, which is really fun. My next topic is sponsoring. So literally, the main objective of doing a virtual tasting is to recruit and grow that particular area. So whether it's inside your state and it's just 3.5 hours away, or it's 3 states away, most likely they've never heard of Wine Shop at Home before, or there's not somebody in their area. So you're that person. You've got to connect them and help them. And so literally that's what you need to do. And Kristen Reif, I don't know if anybody's familiar with her, just did a virtual tasting Saturday, and the host husband joined. Boom. That's what she needed. So that's really great. And it was a successful tasting too, from the comfort of her home. So your virtual hosts are your #1 prospects to join, or the spouse or partner. Isn't that great? So, in every tasting, the host, pretty much they're interested if they want to host. But keep that in mind for your virtuals too. Don't just assume, oh, they just want to do this fun, convenient event, virtually. No, they could be really, really interested in the business as well. And then the cool thing is that if Shelly's my virtual host and she got 3 bookings from her friend sitting there, you can transfer all those bookings, can go directly to Shelly, which helps her earn her Launch Plus 3 and her Rich Rewards path, which is really, really great. So they can literally be up and running from literally just that one event that you did, which is great. So everybody can grow. On to games and raffles. There's a lot of different things you guys can do. I believe in keeping it very simple and don't break the bank. And the little game that I do is pretty much in the beginning of the tasting, so bear with me, I'm gonna go back to the beginning of the tasting. So when you were present and have connected with your host about, like I said, 15, 20 minutes before the tasting starts, I love when each guest comes over to the cameras like, hi, I'm Jaclyn. You get to see them, you get to meet them. I have little slips of paper that I write their name on, and I have a master stem sitting with me, and I throw their name in a raffle. And if they're a little shy, a little hesitant, the host can help you guide them towards there, and she'll say, go meet Jaclyn, the wine rep. She's gonna put your name in a raffle for a prize. And I mean, that gets everybody, you know, always over there. So that's really fun. And then during the tasting, I'll pull, depending on the group, like the size. Like if it's a little bit bigger of a group, I might do 3 just to kind of keep it flowing and say, ooh, we've done 2 wines, who's our next person? So I do pull a raffle, like I said, 2 or 3 winners. And the prizes are not crazy big. They could be some of the same gifts that you sent the host, like a wine ghostwriter pen and, you know, cocktail napkin, something fun. And I always put a note in there that says, so you could have this for your next tasting, just in case they haven't booked yet. So it also helps keep that momentum flowing, like I said, because in case like there's a little bit of like a lag, you know, when they're like waiting for you to do something else, you can be like, oh, let's pick another raffle. That always gets everybody's attention to come right back. And then like I said, I always mail all the raffle winners a little prize. It does not cost me a ton at all, but it ensures that you get their contact info, which is really, really important. The other little game that I do is if it's definitely an area that no one has any wine shop at home familiarity with, I will mail them 6 wine shop at home corks in a little organza bag and have them do the corking. So, you know, the host can have the bag and I can start asking who has questions, and the host can give out the corks, and there's going to be one different or special cork in there for someone to earn another prize. So, you know, again, it's just something fun. It helps you with the sponsoring part, and again, it keeps everybody interactive. All right, whew, it's a lot, but we got one more thing. So closing the tasting and full service checkout. So besides host coaching the heck out of your hosts, which like I said, if you don't already do in person, kick it up a notch, virtual tastings even more, this is the most important thing to do. They can literally pick the computer up and walk you into another room. So I always make sure that the host has the kitchen area set, the living room, a spare bedroom, wherever it is. That will be like my office. I call it my wine office. And they carry me in there. And it's great. And, you know, sometimes at the end of tastings where you're just kind of like that, who wants to go first? I'm not sure what's happening. I mean, more skilled consultants probably know how to keep everybody going. But with virtual tastings, with you not physically being in that room, you've got to get it moving, right? So I'll have the host help me, and she'll say, okay, Jaclyn's only going to be connected for like the next 15 minutes. Who wants to go first with their order? Let's take her into, you know, the other room. And they literally walk me into the other room, and then you get that special one-on-one personal time, that private time, to ask them all the questions. You know, do they want accessories? Are they interested in hosting the business, personalized labels, America's Mighty Warrior donation? I mean, you can go through it all, Wine Club. So that's the really cool thing, is that, you know, you were with everybody, but then you get to kind of be separate. And I find it's a little bit more private than even if you do a little separate checkout area in-person tastings, this is better, because literally like you're the only person with them. If they feel uncomfortable and they don't want to show their interest form to you or give you their credit card over the computer, they can call you or they can text you. I've had people do that. It's really just personal preference, but that's what we're here to do, is to be their little wine fairy and messenger and take care of all their wine needs. So the host definitely starts with that, helps start with that checkout process. And then that individual interaction between you as the consultant and the guest is super important. Like the first thing on my mind would be like, oh, are you interested in hosting? Or, you know, would you like to do something like this? And they could come in the room and be like, I want to do this. And you're like, oh, I didn't even ask you yet. I mean, it just gets them going. So let's see. Oh, and the best thing about it is I'm looking at my notes, so I apologize. They they keep it flowing for you. So if Shelly's my first person and she comes in, she's like, oh, no, order, booking, wine club, blah, 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 okay. And then she could be like, okay, who's next? And she goes out, and like the next person will come in, and it really keeps it flowing for you, which is really great. Also, if not everybody, for some crazy weird reason, books a tasting or purchases wine, I do have the host take a picture of the interest forms and text them to me or send them to me so I can enter them as guests into the system if they haven't done that on the app. And then the other thing, you can go to the next slide, Shelly, sorry, is that I do have them do a groupie or a selfie picture, which is really fun. So they take a picture from like their end, and I can take a picture from my end. And it's just fun. It's a great memory that we have. And you can see there's a few examples of some crazy people up in there. That was great and brave and willing to host for me. And some have even joined, and they're still wine club members. So you just never know. Again, I say, virtual tastings will never, ever replace the interpersonal communication and relationships that you develop at the in-home tastings, but it's definitely like the cherry on top. So if you've never done one, give it a go.
Very nice, Jaclyn. You didn't talk too fast. I know you worry. I talk fast, though. I think we're used to it.
I've had wine. So
You've had wine. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. So does anybody have any questions off the top of your head? And while you're sorting, you can come off mute or you can put it in the chat. I think the biggest thing to remember is the only difference is your body is not there. It's kind of like Star Trek-y, I think of, right? You're that virtual image there. I mean, because these are just these 3 pictures that Jaclyn sent. I mean, this is a nice group of people. I just think it's such an add-on to your business, especially because sometimes somebody has moved and they're like, I don't really know anybody, in my local area. Do a virtual tasting. It's no difference. You have to, of course, keep their attention because, if they can't hear you well enough or whatever, those are really important steps. So you don't want to lose them in the process of it. But I just think it's such a cool thing to be able to do kind of in this day and age, right? This was never not always an option, as long as I've been in direct selling. So, and I see a lot of consultants are trying it out, which I love seeing. We have nice attendance at convention, and people are always interested. It's actually probably one of the top 2 or 3 trainings that I get emails about. Where's that virtual tasting training? I will post Jaclyn's notes to her full notes with this as well, so you can kind of go through that as well. So really the process is just book it like you would. You set up an event just like you would. So if you're using Facebook, I think Jaclyn mentioned that, setting up the Facebook event and doing the invitation process. It's just, I don't know, it's just really no different. So I don't want you guys to really overthink it. It can be a little bit, oh my gosh, initially, because of connection issues would be more what I am worried about, right? Got to make sure it's connecting okay. But other than that, you're good. So Nicole's saying, do you think you have a higher turnout for a virtual rather than in person?
So my experience is I think that there's no dropouts, because I think you're normally hitting a group of people in an area that has no clue what this is. So if they've RSVP'd to attend this event, they show. They're not the people who drop out. So I would say that it's really good attendance list. And I forgot to mention one little tip. I personally prefer to use my computer or iPad, tablet, and then have my phone handy, like I said, to text or post to the Facebook event. Some people use their phone because that might be the only thing they have, and that's fine too. But if you can, keep your phone handy, because I think it's helped the communication better.
Okay, that's a good tip. Is there another question?
Just a thank you.
Just a thank you. All right, cool, Nicole.
Great.
All right, that's it. I will post the recording on Wine Nation tonight. If you guys have any other questions that you can think of, you can post those underneath the recording in Wine Nation, and Jaclyn will see them, and she'll be able to answer them for you too. So I guess with that, thanks so much, Jaclyn, for sharing and doing a little refresh for us. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.